Making an offer on a house may seem intimidating and daunting, but it really doesn't have to be if you know the process and your limits. So today we're going to go over how to make an offer on a house and what exactly happens during the process of making an offer, and number 3, tips on getting your offer accepted. First, let's go over what is needed and what you need to prepare to make a valid offer. There are 3 main things that go into an offer package. The first thing you need to go do is get a pre-approval from a lender. When you make an offer, we need to show the seller that you're able to buy the house, and by getting this pre-approval letter, it will show, obviously how much you're putting down and how much loan you're qualified for. The second thing we need to include in the offer package is a proof of fund. We pretty much have to show the seller that, how much you're putting down and the closing cost is liquid, pretty much showing like a bank statement that if you're putting down 20%, you need to show 20% of liquidity in your bank statement. Also a closing cost. And lastly, and most importantly, that goes into your offer package is the actual contract called residential purchase agreement. So let's talk about the residential purchase agreement and this contract and the important things that go into this contract. Number 1 is obviously the price, how much you're offering on the house. Number 2 are your financials, how much you're putting down, how much loan you're getting, and also how much earnest money deposit you're putting down. Typically in this market in LA, where I'm at, the earnest money deposit is around 3%. Number 3 are contingencies. There are 3 important contingencies that you should be aware of. Obviously, number 1 is the most important one, is the inspection contingency. This is anywhere currently in this market from like 7 days to 14 days. This is where you, as a buyer, you do your due diligence, you inspect the condition of the property as well as anything around the neighborhood, school. This is the time to do it. And second thing is an appraisal contingency. This is where, your bank or your lender will send out an appraiser to pretty much assess the value of the house by comparing recent comps and things like that. An appraisal contingency is anywhere from 10 to 14 days right now in this market. And what this contingency will do is an event. And in an event, the house doesn't appraise at the contract price, then, as a buyer, you have the right to go back to the seller and kind of renegotiate the price and things like that. And third, the most important contingency is a loan contingency. This is where right now it's anywhere from 14 to 17, maybe 20 days. During this time, your duty and your lender's duty is to get your loan fully approved by an underwriter, ready to fund. So out of the 3 contingencies, the most important contingency is obviously the inspection contingency. This is the time to do all your due diligence, inspect the house thoroughly, whether that's a condition, whether that's an area, whether that's a school. You want to make sure you do your full due diligence. And obviously inspection contingency will protect you from many other things as well. And obviously all this contingency, remember the earnest money deposit I mentioned about, the 3%. So that's pretty much your commitment to the deal, but that money is protected through all these contingencies. So before removing all these contingencies, make sure you consult with your realtor to make sure it's the right time to do so. So now we got the contract stuff out the way, let's talk about how to write a compelling offer. Number 1 is deciding on how much to offer on a house. This isn't Vegas, so just don't throw any random number out there. Have your agent check the recent sold comps in the area similar to this house to assess what the fair market value will be for this house. Also, have your agent dig in a little bit about the listing agent to see what typical pricing strategies that they use when they price their listings. Or do they list the house usually a little below, or do they usually list it high, or is it around market value? This will help you strategize the offer price on your initial offer. And lastly, have your agent talk to the listing agent to see if there are any offers on the table or how many offers they're expecting. Also, understanding the seller's situation is very important. Find out if there's anything important to the seller, besides the price. See if there may be any other, minor terms that would actually have the seller favor your offer. For instance, like, do they need a quick close? Do they need to lease back the house after closing? And things like that. Number 3 is strengthening your offer by getting creative with the terms and contingencies. For examples, you could shorten your contingencies or waive some of the contingencies, but make sure to consult with your realtor and fully understand the risk factor that comes with this before doing so. Be flexible with the closing date if that will give you the advantage. For example, If the seller needs quick close, try to do a quick close. If they need a longer escrow for some other reason, try to accommodate that as well. And this one is important. Write a cover letter or personal letter about why you love the house so much. A few of the other ones are something like, you'll purchase the property as is condition, and inspection will be for informational purposes, and something like offering them X amount if you don't close on time. For instance, if the escrow doesn't close in 30 days, as a buyer, I'll give you like $100, $150 a day per deal. Also include the FICO score with your offer package. This is credit score from the 3 credit bureaus. Once your offer is submitted, you're gonna get either one of these responses from the seller. Either they're gonna accept it, reject it, or counter your offer. It's really rare for the seller to accept your initial offers, so typically they're gonna either reject it or get you a counter. The main goal for your initial offer is pretty much to get your foot in the door and get this counter from the seller. The counter is when the real negotiation starts and ends. So there are 2 types of counter offer. Number 1 is a seller counter offer, and number 2 is a seller multiple counter offer. If you're the only offer, you'll likely get this thing called seller counter offer. Typically in this counter, the seller will either counter your price or the terms or a mix of both. So the good thing is you're just few negotiations away from getting the house under contract, and also since you're the only offer, you might have some negotiation leverage in this case. But in today's market, where it's typical for a home to get multiple offer, a seller will usually, you'll get a response in a seller multiple counter with something along the line of buyer to submit their best and final or highest and best terms and price. And this is the second round of bids where the home is actually won. All the buyers that are receiving this best and final offer are pretty much put in the same playing field to give it their highest and best shot, like pretty much your final shot at the house. In most cases, it's going to come down to the price. So make sure you have your agent reach out to the listing agent and ask these questions before you respond with your best and final. The first question is, where does my offer stand amongst the rest? Second question is, are there any buyers represented by the listing side? The third question is a seller open to entertaining an escalation clause? The fourth question is something along the lines of, are there any cash offers? Are there any buyers putting down a significant amount? Or are they mostly like 10, 20, just conventional loan buyers? Something along the lines. And the final question is something like, where do you see this going about? Would $1 million get it done? Just have your agent throw a random number out there just to see if they could fish any information. So obviously every listing agent will work differently, and sometimes they'll tell you a little bit, sometimes they won't tell you anything. But any information that you can get out of the listing agent during this process will give you an edge and give you some intel so that it'll help you with your final price. All right, I know I covered a lot about the whole process today, but one of the most important thing I wanted to mention is about your realtor. You want your realtor not to just be an order taker where you have him submit an offer, and then he just writes an offer and submits it. You want him to go above and beyond. You want him to be proactive, experienced, and also have a skill set to build a good rapport with the listing agent as well. The concept of writing an offer may seem easy, but obviously there's a lot of legwork and obviously a lot of skill set that a realtor needs to have during the process. That said, if you're based in LA and if you're thinking about buying a house, or if you're just starting out the process, please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to help.